morning. Hello. Good morning. Good, very early morning as well. It is absolutely ridiculous time of the day. But this recording has been kind of led by the wonderful Gareth Wax, who said, let's do it at 8:30 in the morning. I said, Gareth, you're insane. But here we are. We're doing the live. It's all about LinkedIn, and we've got a cracking show for you. So let's welcome our amazing guest, Mr. Gareth Wax. Gareth, how are you?
Crowd goes crazy. Thank you, Glastonbury. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. Yes, it has been Glastonbury.
Thank you. Yes, I feel like I'm little Nas X on the main stage and only wearing a bikini. I'm absolutely delighted to be here.
It's great to have you. Right, so Gareth, I've put expert in the title, but you're more than that. You are definitely an obsessive when it comes to LinkedIn. And I want to talk to you a little bit. There's a couple of subjects we want to go through today, okay? But one of them is the power of LinkedIn, and how people can kind of optimize their profile and how they use LinkedIn to really make the maximum input into their business. So what would you say would be the number one top tip about helping people to optimize that LinkedIn profile?
Complete it. I know it sounds silly, but you know what? I took on a brand new client on Friday. Literally, I'd met her only a couple of weeks before. And I said, right, today we're going to go through your LinkedIn profile and just putty in the cracks and make sure it's all well-rounded and represents you the way you want to be represented. And the first thing I noticed is she didn't have a bloody LinkedIn profile. Sorry, I didn't mean to use the P word this early in the morning. But the point is, if you don't have a banner across the top to say what you represent, you're missing a trick. But not only that, but LinkedIn actually score it. So if you don't complete your profile completely, fill out every part of it, you'll be less likely to be seen by the people you want to affect.
What about that's really, really interesting. What about there's so many things about your photographs and stuff like that, and how often you should update, what you should have in the title. So can we just go briefly about the title?
First things first. You're interesting about the photograph. I've got some. Now, I'm a LinkedIn obsessive. I try and avoid the word expert. There's a reason for that. I feel like an expert is kind of like an endpoint, and I continuously find out all the features and freaky bits that you can do in LinkedIn that people hadn't even got a clue about. So I call myself a LinkedIn obsessive, and as an obsessive I'm often led down rabbit holes. So I was looking into photos, and then I looked into a whole bunch of research on how photos can affect the way people react. Now, bear with me. When you're first faced with anyone for the first time and they're looking like this, your immediate thought is, he's offering me out for a fight, he doesn't like me, or he's got trapped wind. And none of those three things really go towards helping the way in which your character can come across. So the first thing is the rules, as far as I can see, remember, this is just from my perspective, everything is, the best way to present yourself on LinkedIn is the way in which you're going to be found, is the way in which you're going to inspire the most positivity, and in such a way that they spend their time connecting with you and being affected by your eyes and your mouth, because that's the first thing to look at. So if you have a photo where you're so far back, your eyes look like two holes in the snow, then they're never going to actually connect with you. They need to see your eyes. They need to see you smiling with teeth. I've got terrible teeth, but it doesn't matter. Smiling with teeth, looking straight down the camera lens with a plain background, head and shoulders. They don't need to see your shoes going out the night before, your pet parrot, your ex-partner's arm, or anything else for that matter. They just want to focus on you. So
that's very good. That's a very good point. I've actually got a photograph of me looking down the camera, plain background, smiling, but I'm actually doing a wheelie in my wheelchair.
There's such a thing as showing off, Jamie.
Yeah, but the reason why I use that photo is because I feel it shows that I'm approachable. It shows that I'm friendly and helpful, but also it shows it shows me to a new community as well. Because I want to engage the entrepreneur community, but also want to engage the disability community. So it gives me that sort of on one of you kind of images. So I'm really cool about that. But so once we've got our profile kind of squared away and we filled out everything and everything's where it should be, what about content? You know, how can we create compelling content?
Oh, well, this is an interesting one. First of all, we need to target where our audience is going to be most likely around. So what time of the day do they think they're around? Now, statistics show that more posts are read between 8 and 10 than almost any other time on Tuesdays to Thursdays. But for instance, on Monday, unsurprisingly, yes, I know it's a crazy hour. Poor Jamie. Sorry about that. It tends to be slightly later start time, so sort of 9 o'clock, 10ish. But the point is, if you're dealing, for instance, with an acting community, for instance, you're trying to target actors, you tend to find that most of the time they're on their way to gigs, coming back from gigs or whatever at that sort of time. So probably, would you believe it, early evening and even Saturday is a good time to target them. If you're dealing with a community such as business entrepreneurs or people who are focused on building their businesses, they're probably going to be 8 till 10. Do you see what I mean? Have an idea of who your audience is. And I would even say, and I know you hear this a lot from marketers, so apologies, build your own ideal client avatar. Try and work out who the hell it is you're trying to affect. Then, content-wise, when you write to them authentically. Write to them as if they're actually about to speak to you. There's nothing worse than reading a whole bunch of stuff written in the third person, which I think makes you look like a thing if you write in the third person all the time. So what you should do is you should write earnestly from your own perspective, and that way it takes across immediately the impression that you love what you do, that it's important to you what you do. It's less of a thing that you do to make money and more of a calling. So that's the content, I would say, right from that perspective. And the last thing is make peace with one inalienable fact of the internet, especially these days. Nobody ever reads more than one paragraph of anything in the first pass. So make sure that paragraph carries a bit of oomph.
Yeah. So thanks to you, actually, I've started doing a lot more articles. So I put a simple post out, aiming to the article, and I've been getting a lot more reactions. So, and also obviously with articles, you can put in links and you can do all the stuff that LinkedIn doesn't like you doing, and it's quite okay to do it in an article. So articles have definitely been the new one for me.
I'm going to come back to that because there's so much talks about what you have as your title and if you should use emojis and stuff like that. So,
well, I've got very strong thoughts on this. Now, I personally loathe and abhor emojis. I think because I'm obsessed about the use of English, and I'm a complete pedant. So I find that. However, any character that is benign, but so has no effect on search engines and so on, is perfectly valid to put there. Just make sure you put a space either side of it. We're going to put it in your first name, your last name, your headline. I would stick away with putting anything extra in your first name or your last name unless you've had a chat to me first, because there's certain rules. I'm not going to cover them now. But the headline, now this is where it becomes really interesting. There are often times within LinkedIn where it'll place inconveniently the click more to read the rest of the article. It tends to do that sometime after it's an arbitrary description, but I say after the 10th word or something like that. So make sure the first 10 words absolutely smack people around the chops and make them sit up and take notice. The only reason being, if you just write, I'm a project manager in a business, then people will just fall asleep. You need them to absolutely come to life when you read that, because guess what? If you've got a bunch of prose written in your about section, or you've got some other beautiful efforts in your experiences, they're never going to see it unless they get past that first section.
Yeah, that's another one. I've recently updated mine as well, actually, to tell people what it is we actually do, so what we actually offer them. Okay, so moving swiftly on, because we are a time restraint, and I've got to rein Mr. Wax in. That much I do know.
Oh, right, okay.
Yes, but link to LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn is really the place where you build your own personal brand, right? LinkedIn is about you as an individual.
Well, LinkedIn is about social proofing, and whether it's social proofing for you or for your brand, the whole thing starts at the personal profile.
Yeah.
So you really got to be focused on getting them to love you, or at least buy in to what your personal journey is. Even if they only understand that you wear a silly hat and a funny bow tie, at least they've got to be able to recognize that goes along with the brand. So that's why I always wear this thing all the time. It's now become totally associated with me, and I've given up putting any words on the actual logo. If you notice, it just has the hat and the odometer behind it, and that's it.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to associate it with this. I want to get to a point where I can turn up in a meeting just with that logo on the backdrop, and they immediately know what's coming next. So the personal branding is absolutely essential. Sorry.
No. So talk about branding, and we're talking about content, and we're talking about, you know, the LinkedIn being you and being authentic. So obviously, if you put out, so we were very lucky last week and we won an award. So we put out an award. Obviously, that gets huge amount of, traction. How do you balance to tell people about what you do and being personal at the same time? Because it's very easy to put the personal stuff out and get lots of traction, but then do actually people understand what you do?
I think being modest in a certain circumstance. Let me explain. You need to show authentic thanks for the fact, for instance, you've received this award without going, yes, join the award-winning Jamie McTavish. And it just becomes a little bit too much. I think it's more important to say something along the lines of, we're so pleased that we work so hard, we do so many things, not necessarily realizing that other people get what we're doing. And then when we receive this award, it reassures us we're in the right direction, because what that conveys is authentic, almost pride and wonder that you do all this effort and people are coming along with you for that ride. And that's a different kind of perspective on the whole thing. I tend to find our American cousins can sometimes go the opposite extreme. I don't think that flies so well here. I think what we need to do is, instead of, because what you tend to find perhaps over there, that they put the word award winning in front of everything they say. It becomes a bit like white noise and static in front, and prevents people from seeing your true character. Character is what sells on LinkedIn. Absolutely. They can see you are consistent, a safe pair of hands, and have a great set of ethics, and other people reflect that back to you. They're far more likely to buy into your brand.
So that is a very top tip. So, okay, so we've spoken about branding, about how we put, but what about other people, right? So how do we use LinkedIn to expand our network? I mean, I get so many messages going, hey, let's join. I want to join your network. And it's not realistic, right? So I end up just deleting them. But what about, how do we just go, hi, we have something in common. Let's connect. How do we?
Can I pick up on what you said? Here's a top tip. When someone approaches you saying, hi, we'd like to be part of your extended network, or whatever it is, connect to them, check whether or not you've got any shared connections in common, because this is often a tip. When you find it's like 1 or 2, then you might with some suspicion, or 0. If it's 0, and if you look, for instance, and you find it's a young lady, very pretty and so on, and that they've got is male connections, and none of them are shared in common, you might view it with suspicion, or even delete it. Is what I normally do. But if they've got 50,000 connections and you've got 10 people in common, keep them, irrelevant of what they do next, because guess what? You're expanding your second level network. And all they would have to ever do is reshare one of your posts, and suddenly the whole of their second level, or a good portion of them, would then get to see it. But let's move that to one side. When you are being approached by someone, the way in which, this is like almost the first time you ever meet them, the way in which that mood is set can often be by the method you do it. So my top tip to you is do this. Instead of saying, would you like to become part of my extended network, or I'd like to, and for God's sake, please, none of this, I'd like to sell you my Yoki Koki 2000 or whatever it is. Instead of that, say, I think that you and I have a shared interest in X, Y, and Z. I will be sharing content that really, really will ignite people's ideas about that topic over the next few weeks or months. On that basis, let's connect. So what you're doing is you are portending towards an event that's going to happen that hopefully will improve their lives. So that therefore, not only will they connect to you, but they'll remember you. And being remembered is absolutely top tip of all. Be remembered.
Yeah. Have you got anything on that?
No,
You're quite active on LinkedIn, aren't you?
Yeah, well, we both are active on LinkedIn, but I think the main thing for us, I think, because there's so much selling going on LinkedIn, and I know that that's a big thing for you. Don't sell on LinkedIn, and be personal. But I find, because I'm very personal on LinkedIn, but therefore sometimes people don't recognize what you do. So it's finding the balance, and I think that is sometimes the hardest bit.
Well, I encourage them to go back and look at the profile. So what I say is, I'm so glad we've connected. Please, before you plight your troth with me, before you think about spending money or time or effort in my general direction, please go and check yourself before you wreck yourself. Go and have a look at the profile and find out that I'm not a complete plank, that there is something relevant to what I do. And then when we have our first actual conversation, you'll feel informed. You'll look at the recommendations, and by the recommendations are the key to great profile growth, I have to say. And recommendations that follow the following format. They need to know where you met or how you came across the person who gave you the recommendation, because that makes you look human. Then they need to know what kind of thing you do, and those how you help them. That confers capability. And then finally, would they recommend you to others? If it doesn't have the word recommend in it, there's basically a slap on the shoulder from an old friend. That Jamie, he's niece. It's not very helpful, is it? I mean, it's lovely, but it doesn't really mean anything. It needs to say he's lovely and he'll get you results, because that's a recommendation. Yes.
Recommendations are the key, aren't they? And people, but
it's so much better than testimonials in many ways, because it's very hard. You can't force someone to take your words. I know some people say, "Oh, write it for me." It pretty much is where getting them to actually put their stamp of approval on your essence on LinkedIn. I think you can't really buy that.
No, one of the top tips that you gave me was, because I didn't know, I had all these recommendations sat behind my profile, and I hadn't approved them. So I think that is a major thing to kind of
yes. Because she did. Jamie looked shocked there.
Yeah, because I'm wondering. Okay, so actually, this does come back onto my second part, right? So we've got two more things I want to cover off, right?
Right.
So the next one is the features and the tools. So I'm assumingly that this is one of the tools that sits behind. So how do we leverage that? What do we do to get to our recommendations?
Well, okay, first of all, if we're going to be doing this sort of stuff, and if we're putting content out, I'm going to say something really, really that may shake people. You do need to take advantage of creator mode. What is creator mode, Gareth? Well, I'm glad you asked. Creator mode is a switch that you can turn on. It's within your resources section. Quizzically, it's easier found on the mobile phone app than it is actually on the desktop app. So if you go into your mobile phone app, you open up your profile, you click on your picture, you'll find that your banner's at the top and the rest of your content's below. What you need to do is you need to find the resources section and then switch the thing on. Now, once you've done that, you get exquisite control over a number of areas, one of which is the featured section you mentioned. Features are very important. And what people don't realize with the featured section is the inbuilt power of the featured section. What you're doing is placing very early doors in your profile. So they've got past your headline, they're reading now, oh, there's the featured section straight in front of them. And the featured section can contain links to external places, such as websites, such as picture sites, just somebody else's review of you on somewhere completely alien to LinkedIn. LinkedIn characteristically tries to avoid allowing you to send people externally to your profile. But here they are pretty much gifting it to you. literally you can make each one when you click on when you are setting up the featured section. Normally it's which article, which post can I have there. As soon as you've got more exquisite control that you get when you're in creator mode, you can hit the plus and you can point it to anything, anywhere, whether it's a static image, a movie, or whether it's YouTube, for instance, which characteristically has been a big no-no for LinkedIn. So that's that. And by the way, it only shows the top 3. The rest are all on like a carousel link on the right.
Yeah.
And remember, people don't read that initially. What they want to do is they want to be wowed. So if the top 3 things you put there, they should make people go, oh, like that. You see what I mean? So they actually take notice. But the other things you can do is in your recommendations is you can order them. Now you can't do that unless you've got creator mode on, which is why I went on that little side diatribe there. Once you've done that, you can actually switch on or switch off recommendations you want to appear. And I'd recommend every month shuffle them around if you've got a few. And by the way, for those of you who don't have a few, get a few.
Yeah. Okay, we've got one more question, right, which I want to cover off. And it's harnessing the power of LinkedIn groups and LinkedIn communities. So we've got a group community on LinkedIn, which actually we have quite a bit of interaction with, don't we? So very quickly, Gareth, because we are running out of time. How can we harness the power of LinkedIn groups and communities?
Well, I personally, I don't think LinkedIn groups are very good, but far better to actually harness the power. Would you believe it? I never thought you'd find me saying this. Facebook groups mixed in with LinkedIn is quite a heady mixture. But yes, the whole purpose of a LinkedIn group is that you've got a bunch of people that you can send a group message to in one go rapidly. Whereas if you were doing it just in general terms, it takes forever clicking through everybody. So it gives you the power to say one message to a group of people rapidly. It is quite good. They haven't really developed LinkedIn groups in the same way as have done elsewhere. I'm kind of hoping they pick up the slack on it. But the other thing is, of course, the hashtag. Now, the hashtag, you've got your own, I'm sure you guys haven't. You've got a no bounds hashtag. What you've done over time is you've gradually encouraged people to follow that hashtag. And it does mean that no matter where you are, even if you're off-piste, if you're somebody else's post or you're posting as a comment on somebody else's bit of content, as soon as you use that hashtag, everybody who is under that hashtag gets alerted that you're doing it. It's one of the few ways that you can mobilize a large bunch of people to take notice of something, because the hashtag isn't restricted in the same way as, for instance, when you just put out a post by itself, that the only, at least in the first 90 minutes, only the first 15 or so % of your LinkedIn level 1 will actually know about it. With the hashtag, you put the hashtag, everybody who is part of that hashtag will be told about it. So very powerful. Groups useful. I would say look at the mixing Facebook groups, because they're much more attractive, and hashtags.
Fantastic. Well, listen, guys, we have to end the show. It's been absolutely brilliant. A massive thank you.
Must we go?
We do, because Gareth, we've got somewhere else to be.
Yeah, I know that.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for listening. If you're listening on replay, I hope you took some golden nuggets away. And we will be right back very soon with another amazing show. So,
please, before we go, check out my profile and check out my recommendations.
Yes.
And give a recommendation today.
Great tip. Right, guys, until next time. Goodbye. Bye.